Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, we were live.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Moss. Welcome everybody, and happy Wednesday. Happy second week of school. I'm so excited that we will be having our budget committee today. And happy to have you all here serving. Just for protocol, the City of St. Louis Board of Education will hold its monthly standing committee on budget equity and transparency, meeting today, Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Again, I would like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Vaughn, let's see. No, we can do roll call. So, Mr. Cummings,
Present.
Reverend Danley,
Present.
Committee Member Turk,
Present.
President Collins Adams,
Present.
Board Member Donald Jones, okay. I think we have our quorum. Dr. Hubbard, I wasn't sure if you were an official committee member joining.
I'm not sure either, so I'll say no.
Okay, that's okay.
Joining because I don't think I had her on the original list, but
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. We can figure that out at another time. But yeah, so first I want to move that we approve today's agenda with a small amendment for introductions before we jump into line items number 2 and 3. Can I have a second?
second.
Awesome. I will roll call. Mr. Cummings,
Yes,
Reyes.
ma'am. Hello? Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. Were you
Okay.
asking me a question?
Yes, we are approving our agenda for today. So now at this moment, we'll all either like review the agenda with the amendment for introductions, and you can vote yes or you can vote no.
I vote yes to approve the agenda.
Awesome. Okay. Committee Member Danley,
Yes.
Committee Member Turk,
Yes.
President Collins Adams,
Yes.
Board Member Donald Jones.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and welcome in, welcome in.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, so we can start off with introduction. Just so again, the community knows who we are on this committee for the next academic year in our service here. And then I'll also pass it over, and we can get started jumping into item number 2. So again, my name is AJ Foster. I serve as one of the board members for the St. Louis Public Schools Board of Education. I am a St. Louis native, born and raised here, and graduated from St. Louis Public Schools. And again, also serve on the governance committee as well for the district. And then I'll pass it over to Mr. Cummings.
Thank you. My name is Ray Cumming. I'm presently serve as the president of the American Federation of Teachers, St. Louis Local 420. I'm a 30-year veteran of the district. I have been a science teacher of the district for many years. Presently, I'm on leave as the president of Local 420. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Feel free to hop in however you think.
Good morning, or I guess good afternoon. I'm the Reverend Dr. Teresa Danley. You can call me Teresa. If you can call me Dr. Danley. I am a priest in the Episcopal Church. I am the parent, most importantly, of 3 children in SLPS. My oldest, Lucy, is a freshman at McKinley and a member of the band that won National Festival Disney in April. Beat all the other bands in the country that were competing there. My 8th grader, Frankie, is having the time of their life at McKinley Middle because they're finally in honors art and loving it. And my 3rd grader, Teddy, at Mann Elementary is so excited because today he gets to try out for SLPS sports, trying out for soccer today. So, because he's in 3rd grade. So I've been on the PTO at Mann for many years. I'm on the band boosters at McKinley. I'm on the Parent Action Council Housing and Incentives Committee. And in my church and civic life, I do lots of other things, but that's what I do at SLPS.
Mr. Do you want to go?
Sure. I am the parent of a graduate of the St. Louis Public Schools who attended St. Louis Public Schools for 12 years. I am a community activist who has been a supporter of St. Louis Public Schools in every way possible since I became pregnant with him 34 years ago. And when I was a parent, was active in the parent assembly, did a lot of visiting to Jefferson City to advocate for the district, and in every way possible in the city have been an advocate for the district for the past 34, 35 years.
And Dr. Borshada, do any of you in the room want to introduce yourself as well?
Kimberly Johnson. I'm the CFO here at St. Louis Public Schools. I'm now going on my 5th month, and I'm excited to be here in St. Louis. I'm originally born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and if in case you're wondering, South Side. Woo woo. Other than that, I'm just excited to be here to support our kids in St. Louis Public Schools, and my passion is financial management, financial budget. So I hope you guys will be able to see, if you haven't already, my passion for the financial management area.
Awesome.
Ms. King?
Hi, I'm Kelly Genge. I'm the controller in the finance department here at St. Louis Public Schools. I think I'm also on my 5th month here. I have about 23 years of combined experience in public school districts. St. Louis Public Schools is by far the largest I've worked for, so I'm really excited, and it's a brand new adventure. So.
Awesome. Well, I think yeah. Dr. Collins Adams.
I'm having some video problems, as you can see. I'm Karen Collins Adams, and I am currently the president of the Board of Education, lifelong educator, and really pleased to be a part of this committee and support Ms. Foster in her efforts to be able to bring some clarity to our budget and our community.
And then Dr. Hubbard, if you want to also come off mute and introduce yourself? I want to.
Sure. My name is Dr. Katrina Hubbard. I am the Director of Compliance and Internal Audit for St. Louis Public School District. And I am happy to be present and will contribute to the success of the district in every way possible.
Awesome. And then Ms. Jones, if you are able, if you want to come off mute and just introduce yourself quickly and we'll get started.
Okay, hey, I'm Donna Jones. I've been with the district on the board for 19 years and happy to be here. And I'm very anxious to hear, the report. And so looking forward to everything that we're doing. And I'm glad that we're making these efforts to provide transparency in our budget. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we got everybody in the room introducing themselves. So without further ado, I will pass it over to our CFO, Ms. Johnson, to give us a monthly network budget report. Yeah.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I don't know Mr. Moss.
Oh, yes, Mr. Moss. So Mr. Moss will be here supporting us with our technology and live streaming us this afternoon. But Kadeem, if you want to hop off mute and introduce yourself, feel free.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Kadeem Moss. I am Project Manager of Technology. I've been here going on 18 years, since 2007 of October. Started off as help desk, graduated from Classy Miller. So I was a product of SLPS and love my job. Love what I do.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thank you, Mr. Cummins, for calling out Mr. Moss to introduce himself. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to our CFO, Ms. Johnson, to give us a report on our monthly network budget.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Foster. What you should have received is our network monthly budget report, July 2025. These reports can be found on the SLPS website as well. We are currently up to date with all of our budget reports, as well as all of our financial reports, as well as all of our check registries. This month, it will be the last month that you will see it in this format because we feel that giving you a new format will be able to present the information in a more concise and more higher level format. But for today, the network budget report is the report that we send out to the superintendents, the network superintendents on a monthly basis. It outlines to them, we have, let me back up. We have 2 financial analysts that are assigned to each network superintendent. They split who they're assigned to in terms of who the principals are as well. So on a monthly basis, we run the financial reports. It comes directly from our financial system, Business Plus. We review the information, checking for accuracy, making sure that we have everything that should be reported is in the right spot. What we look at in the financial department, of course, we want to make sure that the budget and the expenditures are not exceeding. So we look at how much budget that was approved by the board that year, fiscal year. So this budget, as shown in the July report, starts with the FY26 approved budget. That copy can also be found online. You will have the full budget that says the FY26 approved budget. It then talks about encumbrance. What do we have, what we call encumbrance or committed? What POs are out there that we already have but have not completely paid out? Any other commitments that we have, those are shown under that column. The next column is the year to date. What you're seeing right now, you should see very little numbers in the year to date column. And then you're going to see the available balance. That is what is available minus from the budget, the encumbrance, the actual items that are expenditures that are shown, and then it'll tell you what the available balance is. What we like to see is also we look at the year-to-date spend. Year-to-date spend talks about the burn rate, right? You may hear that term used. It is the percentage of your actuals, your expenditures to your budget. Now, usually on a quarterly basis, we should be anywhere from the first quarter, 25% to 33%. And then each quarter thereafter, you're looking at about 33% added. However, what we try to do in finance is look at the quarters that we think we're going to see higher level expenditures, right? So at the beginning of the school year, we're buying school supplies, we're supporting programs. So our first quarter may be higher than our second quarter. Also, you're looking at the revenue that's coming in because we have not received all of our grants in the first month. Our revenue is coming in. And so we may have changes in our budget as the quarters and as the months go on. So that's kind of giving you a high level overview of how we're going to read this report. Now, this report is broken up by schools. It's broken up by discretionary fund. Some have extra service. That's the extra service pay we're paying. And then some talks about other areas where we're talking about grants. And each school that has a grant, it will be listed as comprehensive. It will be listed as Title A, whatever the type of grant that school is receiving, it's also listed under the school department and the description. So this represents every school within our district. It'll talk about what their budget is, and then it'll go through that process. So let's take, for example, and I don't know if you guys have your copy, but let's start with the first school, and that is Adams. Thank you. Now, the first line talks about GOB. That is our GOB budget is the main budget we talk about. It's our operating budget. And when you see the numbers 110, 210, 410, that tells you what that GOB, what funds that GOB makes up. So as you can see under discretionary, it's saying that this school current budget is $30,994. Then it shows you for extra service pay, we have allotted $1,631. I'm just being sure because it usually has one. Yeah. Then it talks about, as you can see, there are no encumbrance. That means there's nothing committed yet against those funds. Year to date, we have no cost yet because this is the beginning of the fiscal year, so no costs have come in. So it's telling us then the available budget is what the budget is. And so when you look at the year-to-date spend, it's 0%. So we have the budget, no encumbrance, no expenditures. The available budget matches what the budget is. So 0%. Now let's go down to the next school, AESM at Carver Elementary. So the first line is comprehensive. That is a grant that's showing you that they have 2,826. Of that, they already have 1,800 encumbrance. And we can delve down deeper into what exactly that encumbrance is.
And so the next time we see an upload, it's going to look different because it's going to be able to tell us what that 1,800 is.
Yes. And then when you look at the available balance, it's 1,026, and they have already spent 63.70% of their allocated budget. So for this will make a flag us in finance. And what we will want to do, why have they spent so much of their budget already in the first month? So what we will do, we will delve down into what that 1,800 represents. We will talk to the school to see why is it already so high, and we will have a justification. If it's a valid justification, we will make note. If it's something that we're questioning, we will also make note. But that 63.70% in the first month, we will want to know why it is so high. Why is that amount encumbered? Now, it could be it's something that came in that they automatically pay for within or commit those funds within the first month, the first quarter. It could be curriculum. It could be a purchase service, anything that is related underneath that grant. My guess is this is probably curriculum that they're buying underneath that Title I grant or a comprehensive grant, but we will delve deeper into that.
Yeah. Ms. Johnson, if I could pause you for a minute, I had a couple of questions, and I definitely encourage the rest of committee members to utilize the chat or feel free to raise your hand, come off mute. Please ask questions in between, because that's what we're here for. And so what are some examples of like encumbrances that schools or principals may kind of fall into or see themselves using some of their budget for?
Or let's talk about purchases. If they're buying something for their schools in terms of general supplies, that would be an encumbrance. That means that we've already ordered it, but we haven't paid for it. So again, encumbrance and commitments are kind of intertwined. We use encumbrances here, which means we brought something, but it hasn't fully been paid for. Those funds are taken out of the budget and are being held for whatever that purchase and or service or item is.
Okay. And then second follow-up before, and I'll turn it over to Ray, and then committee member Turk. And my second question is, just for clarification, the next time we see itemized kind of information like this, like you said, Dr. Borshade, it'll show us kind of what those encumbrances are exactly.
Yes, because that'll be much clearer than us just saying this is an encumbrance. We will know what that encumbrance is actually allocated for.
Yep, that's super helpful. I think that's a really great adjustment in addition. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about the GOB fund, and there's some numbers that follow that are the particular specific fund. Do we have a legend that's available to us that tells us what those numbers mean, like 110, 210, 410? We have a list of those?
Yes, we do. And it's also on the website, but we can provide that to you as well. That's why when we reformat this, we're going to have a legend part of that so you can be able to track those numbers and traceability of those numbers. And so, yes, there is a item on the website that talks about the chart of accounts. I think that's what it's called. And it lists what each fund means, but we can provide that to you as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I would appreciate that because, navigating around these websites for an old guy like me is kind of tricky sometimes. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, next month, as Dr. Borshade has stated, we know that this is for eyes who are used to seeing this. For someone just coming in and new, we want it to be very self-explanatory, at least in more detail. So that's what we're doing. We're reformatting the budget report to be more user-friendly and provide a lot more information.
And then to Board Member Jones' question regarding funds coming from the foundation, that will also be detailed in the updated formatting.
Thank you.
It would just list all of those. Now, funds may not be coming from there for that school, so you wouldn't see it there. It would only be listed if funds are coming from the foundation.
My last question is, how are current budget GOB determined for each school?
Well, we use a formula. A lot of it is based on historical, and then we use what the current staffing is. We use current enrollment. We use what they're actually getting, and it's a detailed formula that allocates a percentage. But its foundation is built off of enrollment, how many teachers there are, how many staffing overall. And then we look at that to build what their discretionary budget is versus their other budgets.
Could you also provide us a list of what those criteria are for that formula?
Thank
Yes.
you. Committeewoman Turk, I know you had your hand raised for quite some time now, please. Oh, you're on mute.
Not quite some time, but yeah, looking at this, it's my immediate reaction was that this is basically just the discretionary money that the principal can decide what to do with, what he or she needs for their school. And I was hoping we would get, I'm not sure quite exactly what the function of this committee is, but will we at any time see the complete budget for schools that includes what they're spending on utilities, what they're spending on staffing, what they're spending on technology, books, the heating bill, the electric bill, anything, money for field trips, money for books, money, the total budget basically, because this is a very, very small part of what's allocated and what's spent on schools.
And CFO Jones, I can jump in here. I think you are spot on, Committeewoman Turk, that this committee's purpose and goal, our role is to review the overall district budget. And so moving forward for our next month in September, we will review the 2025-2026 approved budget. And those are where you get those line items of, hey, what are we spending on technology and iPads? Hey, what are we spending on transportation, right? Year-to-date revenues, expenditures, and costs. For this committee meeting, today's purpose, we wanted to really just give a high-level overview of just how St. Louis Public Schools is thinking about budget, right? And kind of just giving us all a base understanding of what does the current budget actually mean? What does YTD mean? And then too, I think for also the sake of our audience, with starting the new academic year. But you're absolutely right and spot on that moving forward, for the rest of our meetings, we will be reviewing the entire district budget. And again, our CFO will be at all of our committee meetings as well. So if we have questions, this is the time to also make recommendations for the board to look at and readjust things. A lot of those recommendations going to the board will come out of this committee. So today, really,
that's encouraging to know. Also, the capital budget, which is, understand.
So capital assets are also included. Those budgets and expenditures are also included in the full 2025-26 approved. And we can send that a link to that as well, just for our committee to also have it just readily available when we want to look at it. If we have questions, again, I think everybody here in this space has agency and autonomy to ask those questions.
Okay, let me say one thing, and this is something that has been on my mind for a very long time. And for those of you who are working for the district, who are new to St. Louis, I want you to hear this. There is a persistent perception in the city that St. Louis Public Schools is not equitable in how we allocate funds to our schools. And I see Teresa shaking her head, and she knows what I'm talking about. Especially our people on the north side of the city have felt forever that their schools are not funded as well as Southside schools are funded. And there are a lot of historical reasons for this. At one time, that was true. And there's plenty of evidence to that effect. I personally have seen it. But that is no longer true. And yet the perception or the misperception persists. I feel and I hope that especially when there is a public community meeting regarding the budget, which we hold annually, usually in the spring, for parents and community members to attend, but even perhaps at other times at PTO meetings or Parent Action Council meetings, that the CFO and other district personnel undertake to educate community members about how our schools are funded, that the money follows the children, that there are per pupil allocations that are designated by the state, federal government, and that if there are 20 ESOL kids in a school, there's a specific fund per pupil for that. Title I money, special education money, whatever it is, there are, the state per pupil expenditure goes with the kids, and it isn't that South Side kids get more per pupil than North Side kids do. There is a formula, and it is equitable. Well, I wouldn't call it equitable, but it is as equitable as we can make it. And the last thing I want to add to that, because we do need to educate and advocate for the district so that there is an understanding that funding is as fair as it can be. Up until the state takeover 19 years ago, every year the district published an annual report and distributed it. It was available in paper form and online. And that annual report was chock full of this kind of information. You could see per school what was being spent per child. And you could see that the fewer students who were in a building, the more money was spent per pupil in that building, because the lighting bill, the heating bill, the custodian salary, the superintendent, the principal salary, the nurse's salary, they were all distributed. Those services all had to be provided, but fewer kids were there to cover them, so that the money per pupil that was used to support that school was higher, and then it affected classroom allocations because of that. And so you could see that there were schools on the south side and the north side that had a very high per pupil expenditure, and other schools, especially some of the schools that didn't have Title I or didn't have summer school in their buildings, had less money per pupil spent. But they were all over the city. There was no preference to the south side schools over the north side schools. And so I hope that those annual reports will begin to be published again. So the information will be out there, and people will be able to see it if they want to. I mean, there are people, you can't make them see the forest for the trees. But I really want to end this misperception that we do not fund our schools equitably. We've got to convince the community that we do.
Thank you so much. That's a really important point, and I think Dr. Daly, if you want to hop off mute or surface your comment in the chat for the community.
Well, I mean, my own experience with my kids at different schools has been that the private money that goes into each school is not equitable, but that's not really in the control of SLPS per se. It is something that the Parent Action Council is striving to address by having its own fund to give to schools and our own kind of parent-teacher organization in a box to help schools that don't and communities that don't. I mean, let's be honest, in order to have a parent-teacher organization, you have to have parents who are all available or guardians who are available at the same time to meet, whether that's online or in person. You have to have financial resources to be able to provide community events and support for the school. You have to have parents and guardians who aren't working second or third shift jobs or 2 or 3 jobs, right? You have to have parents and guardians that have transportation. So what I've experienced in building a PTO at Mann and then coming into an incredibly wealthy PTO situation at McKinley is that there's a lot of private money that is available in some schools, and that is not equitable, but that is also outside of the purview of the SLPS board and this group. As I said, it is something that the Parent Action Council is trying to raise awareness about, and we have a good model, again, for the parents and guardians. It's not the purview of the board or of this group, but University City, their schools share one PTO budget and redistribute the money. And clearly the schools within SLPS are not at that point yet. But I think, that's part of what we're striving for in the Parent Action Council is to get to a place where there is money available for community events and support at all schools.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for surfacing it. I think this is why we also invite community members too to be a part of these committees, because we know that you are stewards in the community and you can get that information out. But we also recognize that it is a bit of onus on us as board members, as members who work for the district as well, to kind of get that information clear for our community. Because we never want to be in a situation where we aren't providing adequate resources, right, for all of our students at any school, wherever they live or attend in the city. But I am being conscious of time. I know we have 17 minutes left. Mr. Cummins, if you have a question that is related to the budget, feel free to drop it in the chat and I can kindly request that the CFO respond to it. But until then, we'll move on into agenda item number 3, our audit corrective action plans, specifically as it relates to financial dealings in our budget. So recently we got reports and findings from the state auditor's office. Before that, was our internal audit as well that we conducted, as well as an external audit. And so now we'll kind of just be going and moving through kind of what were some of those corrective actions that they recommended for the Board of Education in the district to then follow, specifically, again, as it relates to finances and budget. So I'll pass it back over to our CFO, or maybe our controller who's in the room as well to kind of give us a high level overview. I think off the top of my mind, I know that the first findings, specifically financial planning and budget process, specifically are related to this committee. So feel free to start there.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with the executive summary 5-year strategic plan. As Ms. Foster stated, that our corrective action plans we have developed both for the Rubin and Brown financial statement audit, and we have developed a strategic plan for the state audit as well. So those 2 corrective actions all have some common themes. The first one that we want to talk about is under the heading of financial planning and budget process. The state audit mentioned that we needed to improve upon having a long-term plan, right? A long-term financial plan. And so what we have stated is that we're going to be developing a 5-year strategic plan, which you're seeing right here, an executive summary. And we're going to be developing a 5-year capital plan. Now, that capital plan already is in place, but it's part of our facility maintenance plan. And what we're going to be doing is combining that facility maintenance plan and putting it together with capital assets and building one comprehensive plan. But today, I just want to focus on the financial plan. So if you turn to what the document that says Executive Summary 5-Year Strategic Plan, it is going through what at a high level.
I'll pause you. So there actually was not any corrective action plan linked to the agenda specifically for this action item. So if there's
Yes.
something we can send over and or screen share somehow to ensure that our committee members actually have the information.
The action plans in along with the president. Okay, so it's in, we'll get it. Yeah, we can screen share. We screen share. I did a presentation and it's in the team folder as well as the corrective action plan. So if
yeah, so we'll just wait a couple minutes. That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely think it's important for all of us to have eyes on that and the people watching online.
Can you see it now? Okay. I'm gonna
Yes,
let.
possible to zoom in just a bit. I know it's a little small, at least on my end. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. This is the corrective action plan matrix. And I'm going to kind of tell you how this was developed. What you see here is the first finding. And it talks about, this is directly from the state audit. It talks about what the actual finding is. And just as an overview, it talked about the financial planning and the long-term modeling tool. So I'm going to go down and show you the summary. Okay. So this basically says that the finding was that the district did not have a long-term financial plan. It was out of date and did not show clear evidence of how we plan financially and budget-wise for the future. It also talked about how if we don't have a long-term financial plan in place, how deficit spending, fund balance deficit spending would continue to occur. It talks about, based on their projections, when we will be at certain levels in our fund balance. Like it states here, we will fall below 30% of expenditures in the fiscal year 2027, and then below 20% in 2028. And then by fiscal year 2030, we should be, according to this, below 3% if we don't start to put in corrective actions now. And it did talk about how we're monitoring the board, how we're presenting this budget to the board on a more frequent basis. And then it talks about also that the public district documents were not accurate and some of the financial statements and report was not accessible to the public. So here's the area of focus. This summarizes exactly what's at the top. It talks about long-term planning, planning tool, deficit spending. It talks about budget review and monitoring and public information. The next thing you see is what was the state recommendation to us? They gave us 3 recommendations, and that was to develop a long-term plan, to ensure that budget is accurate and presented well, and to ensure that the documents on our website are accessible to the public. So now we're going to go to what was our corrective action plan and how we plan on implementing this. So as you can see, our response was that we're going to do 3 key items. The first is that we're going to develop a long-term 5-year strategic financial and capital plan. That is something that you guys have a copy of the executive strategic summary of a financial plan. We're going to flesh that out in more detail in the upcoming weeks. It talks about some of the areas that plan is going to focus on. It's going to focus on how do we reduce our fund balance spending? What steps are we going to take? What strategies are we going to implement to make sure by 2030 we are not in a deficit? We're actually planning on have a balanced budget by 2027. It talks about stakeholders engagement. How do we make sure that all of the stakeholders, the family, the friends, the community partners understand the budget and our budget process? We have already started to have community budget meetings where we talked about how do we develop the budget? What is our budget process? We also showed our FY26 proposed budget before it was approved to get stakeholder feedback on some of those key items in the budget. It then talks about performance measures. How are we looking at those benchmarks? How are we going to manage? How are we meeting those targets? What are the debt service ratio? How are we monitoring our performance of this corrective action plan on a yearly basis? And then you see it talks about infrastructure and facility management. That's the capital plan that we're planning on developing. Again, this talks about how are we spending related to our aging buildings? How are we spending related to upgrading our technology and support systems? And then do we have a life cycle based approach? A life cycle based approach is looking at everything from beginning to end. How do we initiate? How do we implement? How do we execute? And then how do we constantly improve? So when we talk about a life cycle based approach, it's looking at all aspects of that subject and how we plan on enforcing those strategies and meeting those metrics. Then we goes down for each title. You see each area. We talk about modeling and scenario planning, revenue forecasting and funding opportunities. We're looking for more robust financial modeling tools that help us to more accurately project enrollment trends, demographic shifts, how much money federal, state, and local revenues could come in, and how do we build that forecasting and that trending into our 5-year budget. This is the pre-planning. This is making sure that we have plans and our budget accurately reflects the next years coming down the line. And then it also talks about the board review of those fiscal year annual budget. It talks about here, how many days are we giving the board time to review the draft proposed budgets? We're giving the board 45 days to look at the budget in more detail, to analyze, to ask questions before it is then returned to the board for approval. We have many more approval processes before it actually gets to this level. Not only are we meeting with each individual school and superintendent, network superintendent, we go over their proposed budgets with them. We also meet with the cabinet members and we meet with the superintendent before any of that draft budget is submitted to the board for review. So there are multiple steps in our budget review process that ensures that when that budget gets to the board, it is comprehensive, it has all of the information in that needed, and it's getting to the level of a more balanced budget.
Ms.
And then
Johnson,
the last part,
Ms.
yes.
Johnson, I'm gonna pause you really quick. So for 1.1, sorry, I'm just trying to like slow us down a little bit because I think we're going a bit fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I talk fast. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. No worries. So I think for 1.1, the corrective action is the development of a 5-year strategic financial and capital plan. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and I'm emphasizing this because again, committee members, this is one of the living, breathing documents that will hold us accountable to then hold the district and the school board accountable again, to ensure that we are doing clear and consistent reviews of our budget. I think in previous findings in previous years that the budget had been proposed or sent to the board pretty late in the academic year. And so using this plan and these next 3 items, this is something that the committee will have a really, really big part in ensuring, right, that the board is actually paying attention, is actually taking in those recommendations, and reviewing and reallocating some of the budget as it has been approved. So I just wanted to pause us for a minute and just like level set and just get that clarity. And then again, 1.1 is development of a 5-year strategic financial and capital plan. And then Ms. Johnson, if you want to scroll down a bit, because I think you started in 1.2 as well.
Okay, so I'll go back to 1.1. Thank you, Ms. Foster. And these are the categories or components that are going to support that 1.1 of the financial 5-year strategic plan and capital plan.
Mm-hmm. So things that we mentioned today already, right? Stakeholder engagement.
Yes.
How are we talking to the community about what the budget is in the budget review process? Life cycle management, right? Thinking about what does our infrastructure and facilities kind of look like? How are we keeping track of our capital assets? And so this was really helpful, I think, having this all in one place for us to have. And again, just a reminder, I put this in the chat, but this corrective action plan will be readily available for committee members as well to review. And if you have questions, again, feel free to reach out and we can get those answered. We can move to 1.2, which is budget review and monitoring. Johnson, I think this beginning paragraph is especially important just for us to, again, like go through what these actual like bit by bit sections are.
Okay, so 1.2 talks about budget review and monitoring. This is when we're going to integrate the financial and capital plans into a comprehensive annual budget process. And that what this goal of this particular strategy is to ensure that we have a balanced budget by 2027-28. That's the goal. How are we going to get there? What are the key areas are we going to focus on in order to achieve that goal? Well, one of the first things we're going to look at is cost analysis and expenditure reduction. That we have already started this process. When we started developing the FY26 budget, we're using some of these strategies here. We're identifying cost savings. Where can we cut costs in terms of to help to balance this budget? We're looking at efficiency studies, looking at where are there areas, continuous improvement, that we have duplicate areas, where can we strategize and streamline our processes. We look at the program evaluation, and we also look at, when we talk about yesterday, how we connect with HR, we look at staffing projections, and we look at how does that play a part in building our budget. Because as we said again, enrollment, staffing, and other areas are key variables in our building of our budget. We also look at revenue forecasting and what are some of our funding opportunities. We're looking at this is where the forecasting tool comes into play. We're looking at realistic forecasts or projections of revenue. We know that there are many areas that are being cut right now in terms of federal and state grants. And we're looking at new areas where what if we don't get that funding? How do we project that going forth in our multiple year budget coming up? So those are areas that we're looking at to help make sure when we're developing our budget, it is strategic, it has good forecasting tools, and we're trying to predict what does the budget look like in 27? What will it look like in 28 if certain factors are not in play?
Thank you. And then for time purposes, we can move to 1.3 at a high level, and then we can move to adjournment if there are no questions after.
Okay, the last part is public information. It's stated that all of our documents that are available to the public and stakeholders must be accurate, complete, and accessible, meaning anybody can go on our website and pull down that financial information that they need to understand our budgets, understand our financial reports. That's where the transparency and building the trust is coming into play. So there are key areas that we're doing to support this particular strategy. We're going to strengthen the budget preparation and review process. We're talking about implementing a more formal and tier level review process for all budget documents. This is when I was explaining a little bit earlier how we look at the budget internally, first starting with the finance staff, then going to the department leads, then going to myself as the CFO, and then eventually going to the superintendent for her blessing before it goes to the board for submission and publication. We look at automatic financial system checks. We want to make sure on a monthly basis that we're doing the reconciliation reports. Those reports are what you're seeing that we presented to you in terms of that network budget report. We're reconciling on a monthly basis. How is our budget and our expenditures matching? Where are there areas that we may have to look at outliers, or why is it above the spend rate that we're estimating? So that's why the monthly reconciliation and data analysis reports are so necessary, because we're keeping our pulse on the budget and any changes on a monthly basis. And then we're able to provide that to you guys, making sure that there is enhanced transparency, that you guys have access to it. And then we're conducting quarterly audits of what we're putting on the website, IT and staff, to verify that you can access those documents. We had some links that were not acting, I should say active, right, that were not active. And so we're taking it upon ourselves to make sure on a quarterly basis that every single thing we're putting on that website is not only accessible at that time, but accessible going back and going forward. And then finally, we're talking about how to establish that accountability for public financial reporting. We want to make sure that there is clear roles and responsibilities. What kind of source documents are we using? We talked about a little bit about the budget book. That is the information I think that Ms. Turk was referring to, that we do issue a budget book usually around the time frame of October that gives more information about the budget. It talks about the graph. It gives you information about grants. Anything budget and accounting related is in that budget book. We are currently developing and graphing our FY 25-26 budget book, and hopefully that should be available on the website sometime in late October. And then, of course, you talk about the monthly statements. That's our financial statements that you see on the website. And again, we're also making sure that any developed SOP and the procedures, financial procedures, are already out there, but we're developing standard operating procedures that go hand in hand with that policy, and that also gives you a little bit more detailed information about budget and accounting and the financial department as a whole. And I think that's it for
Yeah, I
For
think
number,
Yep, I think the rest are more around the audit committee's responsibilities and the full board. But thank you so much. I think that was a great high level overview. Again, I just wanted to make sure that while we were presented this information last night at the work session, that our committee members also have this information, and that is again repeated as many times as possible on what the district is doing and working towards. Again, one, to get a balanced budget, but to also make sure that we are being as transparent as possible, right? With spending, finances, credit cards, things like that with our community members. So without further ado, I'll open up the floor for any questions for the next 3 minutes. And then, but if we don't have any, that's okay. But I'll open up the floor now to see if we have any questions. Mr. Cummings, yeah.
Pardon my ignorance, you know. We throw this term around, but audits all the time, but I'm not sure I thoroughly understand that. So part of my question is, just what is an audit? The second part of that is when I read about audit recommendation, does it mean everything that you get back in an audit you implement, or do you implement those things that make sense?
so let me start to answer the second part of your question, Mr. Cummings. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is that Ms.
So
Johnson?
yes, that's Ms. Johnson,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, so let me start with your second part of your question. When we get anything back from an auditor, whether it's independent, auditor, let me start with the first, I guess. An audit is an independent person or entity that comes in and evaluates your financial process to see if it's adhering to your policies, to your procedures, to making sure it complies with any state and or federal law, and to make sure that you have strong internal controls that pretty much ensures that you're tracking, managing and monitoring budget and funds that are under your oversight. So it is like a person coming in and saying, I want to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in terms of the law. I want to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in terms of your policies and procedures. And I want to ensure that the money that is there is free from any risk related to fraud, waste, and abuse. So that's usually what an auditor does. When they come in, they give that assessment. So answering in your second part is, when an auditor make a recommendation, do we have to accept that recommendation, part or whole, or do we have to ignore it? Well, when an independent auditor comes in, you want to accept that recommendation, right? You want to be sure that you understand where they're looking at from their point of view, their lens, because sometimes internally you're so close to a process, you may not see the gaps that others independently are seeing. So any recommendation that SLPS gets, we're going to take that recommendation serious. We're going to look at it. We're going to see how do we make corrective actions towards that. And if it's clarity needed, we go back to the auditor and say, exactly what do you mean about this recommendation? So every recommendation that you see in our corrective action plan, we looked at, we say, hey, are we already doing this? Are we doing this in part? Or are we not doing this? And then we're building that corrective action plan around that recommendation to make sure it not only meets the state regulation or the federal regulation, but it also adheres to our policy and it improves our operational traceability.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ms. Johnson. I know there's a bit of chatter in the chat, but I think for now we don't have any other outstanding questions. I've heard from committee. Oh, yes, sorry, Ms. Turk, thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say that whenever I hear budget discussions and an emphasis on budget cutting and efficiencies, it always hurts my heart because everything that we cut takes away from the quality of education that our kids receive. And I wish there were a way of putting an emphasis on finding additional revenue to maintain the quality of the education our kids receive. And one way to do that is to increase enrollment. And I would hope that we as a district would fight for every child in this city intentionally, market this district to such an extent, advocate for this district to such an extent that we are not the default place you send your kids. We are the place you think of first to send your kids. And we've got to become that because we have got to reverse the enrollment declines.
Total agreement with you.
Dr. Davis.
Yes, Susan, I totally agree, but that's not something that just the district can do. I mean, we are lacking tens of thousands of units of quality, affordable housing with multiple bedrooms in the city. You know, I mean, people are moved because of our geopolitical configuration. People move to the county so they can have 3 and 4 bedrooms, right? I mean, whether they're immigrants and refugees or working families, like we have a massive systems problem that not just SLPS can solve. I mean, there are many things that we need to do. I wish we didn't have 18 or whatever competing districts in the city of St. Louis. That's ridiculous. But we also have to advocate for, you know, with like we do with the Parent Housing and Incentives Council, you know, not giving away our property tax money to developers who don't need it. We need to advocate for, as the rebuilding after the tornado, we need to advocate for quality, affordable housing so that we can have families in the city who can afford to live here. I mean, it's like, it's unfortunately beyond the scope. Like, it's in many other aspects of my life and things I work on all the time, but like, it's probably unfortunately not within the scope of what we can do.
But I think it is, Teresa. We can compete, and we have to compete with our charter schools for every child in this city. And we can't deal with people who are leaving, but the people who are here, we need to convince them to return their kids to St. Louis Public Schools.
Yes, that I think is absolutely.
We shouldn't be defeatist.
Oh, I am not. I am never defeatist. Every single realtor sign I see in my neighborhood, I call the realtor and I say, if you have any questions about man, you call me directly. So.
Well, I know that we are an hour over. Right, if you have a last burning question, feel free to, you can email it in that thread with the committee members, or send it over.
Could I have about 30 seconds, please?
Yes, yes.
I agree with Susan wholeheartedly. We had SLDC wants us to believe that they're shifting from tax abatements downtown to 4 and 5 bedroom houses over in the Ville that cost $200,000. Well, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have valuable school infrastructure that can be used as the hub for tips, even around the schools, to build the housing around the schools using the schools as the magnet for the revitalization. So I agree with Susan. We have to fight for every child because we're the only entity that's legally responsible for the education of the children in the city of St. Louis. Not anyone else, but this district. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. And thank you to all of the committee members who, you know, come off mute and said things or posted in the chat. Again, we will have committee meetings every month. I can't think of our next day off the top of my head. But again, it will be posted in accordance to policy well in advance, and also with additional supplemental material. So next steps look like us sending out the approved 25-26 school year budget to all of committee members, in addition to the financial corrective action plans that were recommended by the additional audits that the district received in the last year. What I would like for us to do is to review those things in detail, as much detail as we can. I know that it's a lot, but review in detail and come to our next meeting with any questions, any feedback, any kind of gaps you might see or notice. Because as much eyes as that we have on these things, right, the better our district can be, and the better our city can be ultimately. I believe in if we have really great, strong public schools, we have a really great, strong city, and vice versa. So thank you all for your 66 minutes or 76 minutes of your time on this nice Wednesday. But without that, I will make a motion to adjourn. If I can have a second, and then we will do final roll call.
Second.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cummings. I'll do roll call. Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Dr. Danley,
Here.
Committee Woman Turk,
Yes.
Board Member Jones,
Here. Yes.
CFO Kimberly Johnson, President Collins Adams, and then Board Member Foster. Yes. Okay. We are adjourned at 1:17 p.m. Thank you all so much again for spending your time in the middle of a Wednesday with us talking about the budget and all things SLPS.
Thank you for all the information that you've provided. It's been very, it's been